Good morning and welcome to Real Estate Economics webinar series covering the state of Texas. This is part 2 of 4, so if you're interested in viewing the whole webinar, please make sure you collect parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 for your viewing. As you know, these are on YouTube, posted to YouTube every Wednesday at 9 a.m. so that you can view those at your convenience, download them, and move them around, start and stop them at your convenience, all in high def. As I mentioned, today we're covering the state of Texas, supply, demand, and demographics here in part 2. This is the housing supply figures for the total state of Texas, with a current total of about 9.7 million units. As you can see, the growth isn't very pronounced in this graphic, but the housing supply tends to grow relatively slowly, even in markets with abundant land and really plentiful resources, good population growth, fairly stable employment characteristics. No matter what part of the country you're in, those of us in the home building industry recognize that it takes a lot of time to acquire land, improve land, get construction financing, formulate a decent product program, and take that out to market. And as a consequence, the supply numbers tend to grow pretty slowly. There are always units that are being demolished or converted to other uses, small retail and commercial buildings, that sort of thing, group quarters occasionally. Overall, the supply numbers in almost all the markets we deal with are fairly slow moving. You can see on a year-to-year basis, there's been times when the state of Texas has generated about 228,000 new homes, as it did back in 1999. A low year, as you can see right now, 89,406 for 2010. To see when those low figures were last achieved, you'd have to go back to 1992 when we were under 80,000. If you look out through the forecast period, we're going to grow very slowly, 93,000 in 2011, 101,000 in 2012, growing to 130 at the end of the forecast period in 2014. These are generally low numbers that really suggest we're going to have household sizes migrate somewhat higher. Some of this comes in a recession when students move back in with the main household unit or group. Sometimes senior citizens move back into the household group. Sometimes we have 3 generations. So there, for a short period of time, you can underbuild units, if you will, but gradually that tends to reverse itself, and when the economy improves, most of those multi-generational households will disassemble themselves, at least to some extent, and spread out to new quarters. This particular graph shows building permit activity, annual basis going back to 1990. The blue, single-family units. The ringed in burgundy is multi-family units, and the total is ringed in green. As you can see, the 2009 totals about 75,000. You have to go all the way back to 1993 to see figures as low as they are in 2010. Back in 1993, the employment base was about 27% smaller. So at present, we're constructing very few homes compared to the size of the employment base, even during the middle of a pretty significant recession. As you can see, during the forecast period, the total number of units permitted will tend to grow fairly slowly, with finally some acceleration in the out years back towards numbers that we're accustomed to seeing. Multifamily numbers will be fairly restrained in the forecast period. Quite a bit of multifamily construction took place in high value areas, in high value property types, and in formats that don't really lend themselves to high degrees of affordability. We think that's a problem for the multifamily side, and also the single family side has become increasingly affordable during the past couple of years, and so demand will tend to flow to the lowest density alternative, and many people will prefer to acquire a single family home instead of a condominium that can be relatively costly to own and doesn't have similar functionality and livability. In this particular graph, you can see the annual building permit trends for Texas, again on an annual basis. We've reduced this to the year 2000, not going back to 1990 as the previous graph. You can see the 12-month change during 07, 08, and 09, where the numbers came off from about 230,000 all the way down to the 2009 level of just 79,000. So that was a pretty big reduction in permit activity as the recession started to take hold, and then we ran into a credit crisis, and there's no sense pulling permits if you can't get financing. That's a problem that remains. We continue to see credit strains even today across the world, so how that all works itself out is still something that's in progress. We have some building permit totals, as I mentioned, over the next couple of years, growing slowly at first from 2010 to 2011, then accelerating in the out years, all the way back up to about 157, which is a medium, nearly middle of the road number for this area over an extended time period. This particular graph shows supply and demand patterns in the state of Texas. The blue is the supply of housing. As we just showed a couple of slides ago, this tends to grow, very steadily, fairly slowly, and in a very measured pace. You can see a little bit of an upswing around the year 2000, another little upswing in the 2006-2007 time period. But overall, very steady, very predictable, very measured. What you come into is the demand for housing, which is in the green line. When economic conditions are good and jobs are growing very quickly, the demand can outstrip the supply in a very short amount of time, and the only way for that demand to manifest itself is through higher prices. So you get price run-ups, then the employment market pulls back, and you get a little bit of price stability, or in this past cycle, quite a bit of price degradation. You can see as you come into 2009, there's a sudden drop in the demand for housing as the recession sets in, and throughout the forecast period, the demand is below the supply. Essentially, the housing stock is too large at present for the employment base. There aren't enough jobs, as there have been in many periods. And so throughout the forecast period, we've got a condition where we've got too many houses for the workers, and we need more employment to match those up again. Here's the over and under supply manifest in numbers. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen, it's possible to get as many as 200 to 500,000 homes out of whack. At present, we're overbuilt, which is again just really a shortage of jobs by about 400,000. It gradually moderates during the forecast period, and out by 2015 or 2016, we'll be back at equilibrium again. Here's changes in household income. Talking to the demographics, we have more and more people in the home buying categories, which we would classify as 100 on up, and larger numbers of people at the right-hand side of the scale who are having good incomes and are capable of buying more than one house. Population by age group. The real point here is to show the numbers of people that are in the mature market, the 55 to 74 market. Would encourage everybody building primary housing to include a couple of all-age or age-targeted floor plans. Texas, unlike many areas, has demand across a variety of price or of age categories. And here's the distribution. We've picked up more than 1 million new people in the 55 to 64. So this is a real viable market opportunity for people who are interested in age-targeted or age-restricted. Set something up, because you'll be getting people coming out of high-tech states like California. That's the end of Part 2, covering supply, demand, and demographics. Please join us for Part 3.